Hi there, it's Mr. Graham, and in this short video we're going to look at how to use simple number facts to help with much larger calculations. So on the screen we've got something multiplied by 3 gives us a total of 150, gives us a product of 150. Now I certainly never learned my 3 times tables going up to 150. So what I'm going to do to make this easier, I'm going to make 150 10 times smaller to make it more manageable to work with. Make 150 10 times smaller gives us 15. Now, how many 3's make 15? How many 3's make 15? How many groups of 3? How many lots of 3? How many times 3 makes 15? 5 3's make 15. Now, if 5 3's are 15, how many 3's will be 150? Well, the 3 is the same, but my answer is 10 times bigger. That means my number over here must also be 10 times bigger. So 5 multiplied by 10, make it 10 times bigger, gives us 50. Nice and simple. Okay, let's move on with a slightly more difficult example. A mystery number multiplied by 11 gives us 1210. Now, same thing again. I certainly don't know all my 11 times tables. Keep counting in 11s up to 1210. But I'm going to make this easier for myself. We've got a 0 at the end, which means it's a multiple of 10. So I'm going to make it 10 times smaller, which gives me 121. Now, if I know my 11 times tables, I should be able to work out the calculation on the screen. If I don't know, I'm going to have to use a little bit of common sense and a little bit of tactics. Well, I know that 10 11s would be 110. This is slightly bigger than 110, so we're looking really at 11 11s, which is true because 121 is actually a square number, 11 11s. So, this 11, shown by the green arrow, stayed the same, but the answer is 10 times bigger. So if the answer is 10 times bigger, then my first number must be 10 times bigger. So let's make 11 10 times bigger, and it is 110. There we go. Okay, moving along. Let's look at another example. Mystery number multiplied by, what shall we say this time, multiplied by 6. Mystery number multiplied by 6 gives us an answer of 4,200. We're up into the thousands now. We can cope with that. Now, I don't know my 6 times tables up to 4,200. If I'm going to count in 6's all the way up to here, it's going to take an awful long time. I noticed that 4,200 ends in a double 0. That means it's a multiple of 100, because 100 has got a double 0 as well. So this time, instead of making it 10 times smaller, I'm going to make it 100 times smaller. So make 4,200 100 times smaller gives us an answer of 42. Now, how many 6's make 42? How many 6's make 42? Well, again, I should really know this by the time we've reached year 5. However, if I haven't, I'm going to have to use my smarts. Well, 10 6's are 60. It's less than that. 5 6's are half of that. 5 6's are 30. So it's more than that. 5 6's are 30. 6 6's are 36. 7 6's are 42. Okay. Now, the 6 didn't change, as the green arrow is showing, but 4,200 was made 100 times smaller. So my answer up here has been made 100 times smaller. So we're going to have to take this 7 and make it 100 times larger to find out the real answer. So 7 lots of 100 make 7 100 times bigger, 100 groups of 7, 100 lots of 7, 700 it is. Okay, we've got a new calculation on the screen. Something divided by 4 equals 1,200. Now you can see the missing numbers at the start. What we're going to do this time is we're going to work back to front. In other words, we're going to start over here and go this way. Now the kind of rule is that if you're working back to front, you're actually doing something very fancy called you're inverting the calculation. So the inverse operation, inverse or inverting means opposite. So instead of dividing by 4, we're going to do the opposite, which means we're going to multiply by 4. So I'm going to rewrite it down here. We're working back to front. We're going to take this number, 1,200, which moves down to here. And because we're working back to front, because we're inverting the calculation, we're not going to divide by 4. We're going to multiply by 4. And then that's going to give us the number we're looking for. Now, how on earth do we do this calculation here, 1,200 multiplied by 4? Well, there's a couple of ways we could do it. We should be aware that multiplying by 4 simply means you double something and then double it again. So that's quite straightforward. Double it and double it again. However, I could be using the strategy I've been using in the previous examples. I could be noticing that this is a multiple of 100 and I could be dividing it by 100. Shrink the screen down to give me 12. So I could be doing 12 times 4. And I know that 12 fours, well, double 12 is 24. Double 24 is 48. And if 12 fours are 48, then 1200 fours give us an answer that is 100 times bigger, which is 4,800, and I can't fit the answer in the box. Let's have a look at another example just like that. Let's move the screen across. Okay, on the screen then, something divided by 6 equals 1,300. Now, we're going to do exactly the same as we did in the last question. Because we've been given the total over here, we are going to work back to front. We're going to invert the calculation. We're going to do an inversion. Okay, and if we're working inversely, the inverse, we're not going to divide by 6. We're going to multiply by 6. I'm going to start and I'm going to move my 1,300 across here. And we're going to do the opposite because we're working inversely. We're not going to divide by 6. We're going to multiply by 6. And that will give us the answer that we are looking for. Now, let me just shrink the screen down a bit. Okay, 1,300 times 6. Let's do a little trick. It's a multiple of 100. Let's divide it by 100. Let's do 13 times by 6. 13 groups of 6, the product of 13 and 6. Now, I'm not too hot on my 13 times tables perhaps. So what we can do is we can partition this in our heads. We can do it like this. We can do 10 times 6, which is 60, and 3 times 6, which is 18, and 60 at 18 is of course 78. Now, if 13 sixes are 78, then 1300 by 6, so is 100 times bigger, and 100 multiplied by 78 is 7,800. And there we go. Okay, I hope this short video has been useful. It's really important that you learn and know your times tables off by heart, because if you know the simple times tables, you can do very sophisticated and large calculations mentally quite easily, to be honest, as hopefully you've seen using this video. Thank you very much for watching.